According to them, the trans kids that want to play the sports, Lord have mercy, that is the biggest issue that we had. Since when? Since when? Find the little trans child that is ruining your life. Like, I mean, I'm just like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
It seems pretty easy to get under Donald Trump's skin. Everything seems to irritate him, and he's often angry, lashing out. But living rent-free in Trump's mind, always triggering his reactions and tapping into what gets to him, that's on another level. And that's exactly what Jasmine Crockett has managed to do. She's clearly succeeded in constantly agitating Trump, which he made clear in a recent attack on her during an odd podcast appearance. However, this has completely backfired, drawing more attention to Trump's declining cognitive state, something Crockett brutally pointed out in a clip we're about to watch. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me now. Before we can get into Jasmine Crockett's takedown of Donald Trump, we gotta see where this all started. Donald Trump talking about his cognitive state right here.
Very low IQ president. And by the way, I took my cognitive exam as part of my physical exam, and I got the highest mark, and one of the doctors said, "Sir, I've never seen anybody get that kind of, that was the highest mark." I hope you're happy with that, although they haven't been bugging me too much to take a cognitive, but I did do my physical and it was released. I hope you're all happy with it. I notice there's no question, so probably you are. But the cognitive, they said to me, "Sir, would you like to take a cognitive test?" I said, "Did Biden take one?" "No." "Did anybody take one?" "No, not too many people took them." I said, what about Obama? Did he take one?" "No, he didn't take one either." I said, "Let me be the only one to take one." But I've actually taken them 3 times already. I like taking them because they're not too tough for me to take.
But so anyone who, like Donald Trump, has to brag about passing, and I mean passing, although he'll say acing, it's really passing one of the most basic cognitive exams you can take, where you have to point out what an elephant is that person is in some pretty deep stuff. It is not an exciting time when you're taking cognitive exams like Donald Trump is, and the way that he brags about it just shows how far gone he is. But he's always throwing this around, talking about who has a high IQ, who has a low IQ. It's an insult he loves to lean on, and he did when he was attacking Jasmine Crockett on just kind of a weird MAGA podcast, and the strangest thing about it was how Donald Trump sounded. Of course, what he said is important for this context, but just listen to how he sounds.
She lies, but she's a lowlife, and she's a very low IQ person and a lowlife. And I don't imagine the Democrats are going to have a person like that running their party. If they do, they'll never win an election again. It would be very hard. But I can't imagine she's going to last long.
And what do you think of Governor Gavin Newsom's? Sorry.
To be smart, you do need a brain. You can't get around with little quips. And I've watched her. I've only heard her for the last couple of days, and I watched her make a speech, and she can't speak. And she truly is a low-level person on the very important chart of intelligence.
Yeah. And
really, it's nice to have intelligent people running your operation.
Yeah. So somebody you can talk to, who you could have a good conversation with.
She was a comedian. I couldn't believe she was a congressman or whatever she is. and no, I thought she was a comedian.
That's unbelievable.
And she was sort of a little bit funny, but crude. And now I find out she's actually a politician, which the Democrats are going to suffer with this one.
He sounds groggy. He sounds old. He sounds out of it. He sounds weird. And he keeps going back to IQ. Jasmine Crockett has a low IQ, Jasmine Crockett. She isn't that smart. Someone who's a very accomplished attorney in Jasmine Crockett, someone who at her young age is in Congress, is successful, is a rising star, if not one of the biggest stars in the Democratic Party. That person isn't smart. Okay, we're just Not even going to buy into that. But Donald Trump's attacks on Jasmine Crockett haven't stopped there. We've seen him threaten her legally with Pam Bandy and the rest of the crooks in his administration. But this threat in particular, this attack Jasmine Crockett just couldn't help herself from responding to, and I'm so glad she did. She brought a little attention to something Donald Trump doesn't like us to talk about. That's what's going on up here, or what's really not going on up there. Let's take a look. Dallas Rep. Jasmine Crockett says she absolutely would take IQ test against Donald Trump. Dallas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett said she would be willing to take an IQ test against Donald Trump. Crockett made the comments while making an appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live on Tuesday night. During the appearance, Crockett talked about the president Elon Musk and what Democrats need to do to win over voters. The late-night host asked the lawmaker if she'd be willing to take a public IQ test head-to-head against the president. Absolutely, Crockett responded. Jimmy Kimmel also played a clip of Trump calling Crockett a new star in the Democratic Party at the National Republican Congressional Committee dinner earlier this month.
When you literally are supposed to be the leader of the free world and you're worried about a rising sophomore in the House.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Or you wish she was on your side. He also called you low IQ. I'm sure you're aware of that. Would you be willing to take an IQ test publicly, head-to-head against the President of the United States?
Absolutely.
I absolutely love what Jasmine Crockett is doing. She's taking every chance she gets to highlight the obvious decline in Donald Trump's health, if we can even call it that. It's clear things are falling apart for him mentally. And this isn't the first time Jasmine has used her platform to call out the state of the current administration's health. She also delivered a savage takedown of RFK Jr., emphasizing that while there are countless scandals to address, RFK Jr.'s actions are directly endangering the health of America's children. Jasmine didn't hold back in her criticism, and we've got that brutal moment right here.
In fact, I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is that the Republicans believe our job is, because right now they have relinquished their constitutional duties over to an unelected bureaucrat. Someone who no one went out to vote for. And absolutely, he is occupying the Oval Office, as we saw yesterday. And that is a first for me, to see someone occupying the Oval Office who's never actually been elected to the Oval Office and actually answering more questions than the person that allegedly got elected. But for whatever reason, this is the first time we're having a Doge subcommittee hearing, and that guy's not here. Instead, we have y'all. So I do want to thank you for coming. But I will say this. It's also interesting to me that in the first few days of Doge existing, we know that they are trying to get rid of the Department of Education, USAID, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They're laying off FAA workers. They are going after the FDA, the CDC, the HHS, the FBI agents, and they're talking about getting rid of FEMA. And they brought y'all in. And I am going to say that I actually was shocked that there was only one person that seemed like he was an overt Trumper as you laid out your opening remarks, because I anticipated that at least one of y'all would say, yes, what Elon is doing is exactly what we would prescribe. But instead, I will applaud you because you actually were focused. You talked about what the American people are looking for us to do. We've actually consistently on this side of the aisle promoted this idea of making investments into technology so that we can do things such as, say, look at the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense that takes up approximately 50% of our discretionary income, or our discretionary spending. Approximately 50% goes to Department of Defense. Department of Defense has not been able to pass an audit in the last 6 audits, and we're not talking about pennies. I understand that we want everything to be perfect, and if we could get all waste, fraud, and abuse out, that would be fantastic. But let me talk about the big numbers. The big numbers are on that side. When we look at, say, our entire workforce, our federal workforce, as we're trying to somehow fire all of them, they don't even make up a total of 5%. It's even less than that when we look at our budget. But let's talk about defense. That just happens to be the same side of the ledger that Mr. Musk gets the vast majority of his money from. In fact, at the same time that they were unlawfully, and we will stay in court because on this side, we believe in law and order. We believe in, I mean, a number of us are actually lawyers, but nevertheless, we understand the Constitution. We believe in that as well. And so there's things such as, impoundment, right? Because as Mr. Whitson said, he said, we need to return the power of the purse to Congress. It never left. According to the Constitution, that's where it's at. Now, I know that people are confused right now because for whatever reason, we had a guy that went in, and you talk about people invading our data. Listen, people said that they were upset about TikTok, but I'm upset about the guy that runs Twitter, who for sure is doing nefarious things, because I don't understand, if you are trying to conduct audits and figure out where the waste, fraud, and abuse is, I don't know why you would go to some tech guy. In fact, it was only techies that were sitting there at inauguration. We didn't have auditors. I would welcome auditors to come in and do forensic audits. In fact, he sat there in the Oval Office yesterday and he admitted that he was lying, and he was using his propaganda machine to do it when he said that we sent millions of dollars to Gaza for condoms. That was a lie. So let me tell you something.
The gentlelady's time has expired.
It's time for
the
us
gentlelady's
to do our
time
job
has expired.
and rein in this rogue actor known
The
as
gentlelady's
Elon
time
Musk.
has expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Burles.
It's not just about RFK Jr. being a wild conspiracy theorist. He profits off of this. And we ultimately always need to be connecting as much as we can what is happening in the Trump administration to their corruption. That these are people who are looking to serve themselves. They said they were going to lower your prices. All they've done is raise their net worths. That's pretty much it. That's what it boils down to. And we got to call that out, much like Jasmine Crockett always is on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.